Took place on the 4th of July 1993, so that's 27 years ago. I think the idea myself and Vince had was to recreate kind of Lisdoonvarna vibe, so we had a really fantastic, eclectic bill, folk music, rock music, reggae music. We had Bob Dylan came to Tramore for us.
Now, I know you're a huge Dylan fan, so was he in your sights to begin with?
He was. Well, we had him 2 weeks before that. He headlined the London Fleadh for us, so we gave him the extra gig of bringing him to Tramore. And actually, it was the only time I got to speak to him, because normally in London he'd arrive side of stage in the blacked out car up on stage, and then the minute the show was over, he'd be off in the car again. But in Tramore, we had let him know that the Waterford Glass lads had made a memento for him.
Yes.
So they handed that to him, and he was mingling backstage with everybody else. It was the only time that I saw him cool and relaxed, which was great.
What did you think of him up close and personal? As I say, I know you're a huge Dylan fan.
He's fairly quirky. I had a surreal four-way conversation with himself, Van Morrison and Paddy Maloney from the Chieftains. But I think as long as you don't go to talk too much about music, my plan always is when you're speaking to someone, just even if they're a living legend, just treat them as a normal person, you know. So he was chatty, he was relaxed, great.
Now, I'm looking at the lineup here, and it is actually phenomenal. You have the likes of Van Morrison, Ray Charles, Nancy Griffith, Moving Hearts, The Pogues, Jimmy Cliff, Maria McKee, and then you have the Hothouse Flowers, Joan Baez, wow, and Cry Before Dawn in their great Irish band, Mary Coughlin, Eddie Reader. You've been promoting music and bringing acts in for a long time. Were acts more accessible in the 80s and 90s as they are now? Because, I mean, you really pulled together some lineup there. Yeah,
it was a fantastic bill. I mean, we had a collection of promoters in London that put it together. I mean, Ray Charles was booked by our promoter. We had a venue called the Jazz Cafe, so he got him, and I just remember it was the most perfect setting. Anyone that was there will remember he came on just as it got dark, and there genuinely was a big yellow moon over Tramore Bay behind the stage. It was just amazing. Jimmy Cliff we had on the Saturday in the middle of the afternoon, glorious sunshine, and that was part of the problem as to why we lost a fortune on it, because we needed 13,000 people to break even, and we had spotters on the road clicking cars and people coming into Tramore, so we knew that many people came in, but only half of them actually made it to the festival site. The whole of Tramore put on, all the pubs put on music, there was buskers in the street, the weather was fantastic, so half the people just stayed drinking in the street all day and never came into the concert.
That's amazing that actually happened, that that it wasn't a phenomenal success given all the names that were at it.
Your sound system was too good, Mick.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, when you have the likes of Jerry Lee Lewis, Ray Charles, Van, Bob over the fence, and people just the other side and not paying the I think it was only €25 to come in, and people still preferred to spend a few quid on the beer rather than coming in to see those living legends.
It's amazing. Yeah, I'm looking at an old picture of a ticket here. £25 plus a £1 service handling charge is what's on it. Where did they all stay? All the acts and all their entourages?
I think Bob stayed in Kilkenny, actually. Can't remember the reason why. I'm not sure who stayed in... Actually, I think Shane stayed in Tramore in the Majestic. I remember towards the end on Sunday night, we were running out of cash because obviously the door sales weren't what we were expecting. And we only had Jerry Lee Lewis and the Chieftains left to pay. And I had recently read a book on Jerry saying that the last promoter that had failed to pay him, he pulled the gun on him.
What?
Unless Paddy Maloney's got a shotgun, Jerry's getting the money.
Oh my God. There needs to be a documentary about all of this.
Oh right, that's good. Yeah, it was a phenomenal when you think about it. Obviously it was the biggest concert that's ever taken place in the county, and to have that lineup, I suppose you could make a great movie or documentary out of it.
I think so.
What a bit surreal.
Yeah.
Surreal is right.
Does it feel like 27 years ago?
Oh, it does. I mean, that's where I first got my grey hair. I mean, I had just in London, we were busy expanding as a venue operation, so we had borrowed. Our finance came from a brewery rather than a bank, so we've got $500,000 of new finance to buy the Jazz Cafe and the Forum in London, and we lost it all in one weekend.
God, it's just it's sickening, really, because given that you, like you said, you got such a phenomenal phenomenal lineup that it just didn't work out. We'd a call in here. Anne and Margaret said they did the catering for the Gardaí that weekend at Fleadh, stationed in the school close to the race course. That's probably Philip Baroon there, is it? They said we made breakfast, lunch, dinner and teas. Busiest weekend ever. It was great.
Yeah, I suppose this far down the road I can look back on it with happy memories. I've forgotten about the money we lost, but I still clearly remember the likes of Jimmy Cliff and Ray, and Van was in great form, and actually John Prine, who sadly passed away.
Bless him, yeah.
Of COVID, he played in the marquee. It was the first time I saw John, and I think I became a lifelong fan after that.
What a performer, Mick! What a performer!
Great music, yeah.
Yeah. Someone says get Fleadh Mór back again. It was great. I don't think you could bring together that calibre of talent again.
If anyone wants to ring me with £1 million to spend,
now there you go.
Put the line up together for them, no problem.
Yeah.
I heard a story about Ray Charles. Was it Ray Charles couldn't his airplane couldn't land in Waterford? Had to land someplace else. Was it? Or?
Yeah, I don't really recall what happened. I do know that Ray's tour manager was a bit of a nightmare to deal with. Christy Moore was a huge fan of Ray, so Christy wanted to see him from the side of stage. So Vince brought him up, and the tour manager was telling him to take Christy off the side of stage, and Vince basically said, look, if it's a choice of you or Christy coming off this stage, Christy Moore is not going anywhere.
Go away. Fair play.
A friend of mine, her dad was his chauffeur on the day, as in for Ray Charles, and when they had finished the journey, apparently he gave that person a braille book, as a little keepsake.
I suppose Ray couldn't drive himself.
That was it. Yeah. But just an amazing time, Mick, and we really appreciate you coming on this morning. And you know what? You'll always have it to say. You were there at the forefront and the instigator, along with Vince and all that went on, and the rest of the crew and the team that were working with you that time. But
I'll be able to say I brought Bob Dylan to Tramore.
Exactly, and you met him.
Not too many people can say that.
Exactly. Listen, Mick, thanks a million for taking the call at such short notice. Really appreciate
God bless,
it.
Mick.
Enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.
Yeah, you too. Cheers.
Bye.